Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Think and Grow podcast with Dr. Z
and Professor P.
We are so excited. Our guest for today is for our Coach's Corner. And our special coach today is Janet Nambi Kiwanuka.
Woo, you nailed it.
You nailed it.
All right.
And Janet is from Uganda. And for those of you who don't know, I was born in Uganda, in Kampala, or also where Janet is from. So I am so excited to just do this interview today and to really just get to know more about Janet.
Yeah.
Janet, give us the lowdown. Tell us all about yourself.
Tell us all about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, what do you want to know? There's so much, we could take a whole day here.
I know. Give us that backstory, that little, a snapshot of, you're from Uganda, Kampala,
Yes.
Started out, I have a family. Tell us a little bit about.
Okay.
How did you come to the US? And then you went back to Uganda, and now you're back again. We went to the same life coach school training.
Yeah,
what a coincidence.
All that, but for right now, just give the listeners a little bit, get to know Janet a little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay. I am originally from Uganda, as you've mentioned, and I was born and raised in Kampala and left Uganda when I was 16 to go to high school in the UK. So I did my A-levels in the UK. My father just decided, you're going off to school in the UK, dumped me there, left me there, but of course with a guardian. And I was in boarding school though. And while in the UK, I explored more. I was like, well, this is an adventure. I never argued about going to the UK. I was like, yeah, let's go. So I get to the UK. I was like, what else is out there? The US is also another place I could explore. So I decided to apply to universities in the US. He was okay with it. I ended up at Howard, spent about 12 years in the US. After graduating at Howard, I did finance, and then I did my master's in telecommunications management, and then worked in a bank for 7 years. And at that time I decided, well, home is where the opportunities are. And then I left again. Went back home. And I've been back and forth though for several years now. And I have 4 children.
Wow.
3 boys, 1 girl.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, my oldest I've just brought him back to the US. So it looks like I'm in a transition once again. So he can finish off high school and be able to get into college. So yeah, that's my little story. I'm a life coach, certified by the life coach school. Very small world. The world has become so small to know that Zelda is there. I see some other Ugandans in there. And I certified in October 2020 and started my business shortly after that, with a whole lot of, I had to do a whole lot of work on myself to be able to get that business going. And today I'm so happy that I am actually doing what I'm passionate about. I kind of jumped the gun. When I was in Uganda, 2 partners and I got together and we started a business. It was a recruiting agency, very successful. We started in 2006. I left in 2016. And we had grown the business to about 6 countries. And I just got to a point where I was just fed up, absolutely fed up, fed up of being fed up. And then I decided, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I was getting up every morning and dreading going to work, getting there and not putting in my all. And of course, I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing them a disservice. We started this together. We had the dreams, we grew it. It was successful. I was at that point where I just didn't know what was going on. I was just fed up. Maybe because I had 3 babies in the process. Yeah. I don't know, and working hard.
Yeah. So can I interrupt you for just a second here?
Yes.
Fed up. Do you feel that it was fed up / burning? Were you burning out at that point?
Yes. I was burning out at that point, but I had no idea that's what was happening because I did not know about life coaching. I'd never known about coaching. I didn't know about coaching at that time. So I now know that I was burning out. I did not get to that point where, to the point that it becomes kind of depression, but it affected so many areas of my life, especially my relationships. And, so I just, I just left, not knowing what I was going to do next. So
what do you think was the, can I just ask, what do you think was the difference from when you started the business? Because I've shown you the personality profile with these bank cards. And so nurturing and teamwork, what was it that you enjoyed about when you first started the business compared to when you burnt out? Can you like pinpoint what did you gain and what was lost?
When I was getting into this business, actually, when I do the self-discovery through the self-discovery process, I call that the self-discovery process. When I left, I found Brooke Castillo. In fact, before that, somebody introduced me to coaching. And as I was working on myself, I had relationship issues going on at the time. My marriage was failing. So as I was working on myself, it was like, where has this all been my life, right? It totally opened my eyes up to what it truly means to have a meaningful life.
Right.
And that's when I realized, wait a minute, I've been, the kind of work that I've been doing as a recruiter, you're kind of partial counselor because you're always counseling people into what roles do you want? Can you go and figure this out? And all of that good stuff. And I've always been that kind because I am also up in there in my family. I am number 3 of 8. Whoa. You always take on that. You always take on a role of the responsible leader. So when I found coaching, it fell right in place. I was like, wait a minute, this is what I've done. If I add the knowledge and the skills, I can turn this into a business. So that's what influenced me into getting into coaching or starting this business, but also realize that there's so many women out there struggling who do not know what success means to them. It's defined by everybody else. Why not help people like them finally figure out what it means to have a meaningful life?
Yeah. So I want to back up the truck just a little bit here. Guys and gals, there's the TED Talk that you did, right?
Yes.
Which I watched last night, took a whole page full of notes and all of that. And the thing that really stood out to me was when you talked about defending yourself. Can you tell us more about that? I want to get a little bit more of this backstory before we get into all the coaching stuff and what's going on currently, because I think it's really important so that our listeners get this understanding of what really drove you to the coaching and some of the adversities. That's what we really want for our listeners is what are some of the adversities that people are facing in their lives, in their businesses, their careers, whatever it is, right? So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So when I decided to leave NFT, everybody around me thought I was crazy because the business was pretty much at its peak. It was still growing. It was very successful. I was making very good money. And the challenge is whenever somebody asked me, what are you going to do next? I had no idea. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit home and take care of the babies for a minute. But because people were so used to seeing me in suits in boardrooms, it was like, what do you mean you're going to sit and take care of the babies? And I remember somebody asked me, so how do we refer you? I mean, what do we say when we're referring you somewhere? Do you have like a business card? Do you have like, and I'm thinking it's not about the title. It is, sitting at home and taking care of the babies is not an easy job either.
Right.
So people were, people couldn't believe it. Uganda is such a small community. And the fact that when we started the business, I was the first person to sit in the office. I was the face of the company. I was the one who was going out there. I had a sales background. So I was the one going out there and getting business. So people had the assumption that I had started the business myself.
Oh,
And now I'm giving it up.
yeah.
So everybody was calling me, was like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving your baby? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Did they do something to you? Because my business partners were married.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, they didn't. And I would sit hours on the phone explaining myself and trying to defend my actions. And oh my God, it was so burdening, for lack of a better word. It was so much weight. I was going through a whole lot of emotional turmoil, and I had no idea that what I was doing, I needed to do it for me, because all of that time during when I was running the business with the other two, I was living a life based on other people's definition of success. People praise you when things are going well. It's, oh my God, you guys are doing great. I mean, business, you've created all this credibility in the market. People are just calling you up. You don't even need, selling became like a nothing, a no-brainer. Companies were looking for us instead of us going out there. And it was just that easy. So people can understand, how could you leave something so easy, something you could do in your sleep? And after that, everybody was asking me, are you going to start another company? Are you going to do recruiting again? I did not want to hear another word associated with recruiting or outsourcing. I was done.
That's the fed up part, right?
I was so fed up.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge was the office we rented was on my dad's office building. So, he raised me. And of course, a lot of what I did growing up was all about pleasing my dad. And he was proud of me. He was, that's my daughter. That's my daughter's business. So leaving just, it was like pulling the rug from under his feet. He couldn't get it either.
Yeah, like your identity was like
gone.
Who is she now? Right?
Exactly.
You're just on a timeout. You guys relax. We'll come together.
Yeah.
But even not knowing what I know now, I had lost my identity as well.
Right.
I had lost, and that's why I kept defending myself. Everybody sometimes asked them, like some asked me what I was doing. It was, this is going to be a good thing. I am going to figure it out, and a whole lot of explaining, a whole lot of trying to make it seem right for everybody else, and because I didn't own it that it was right for me.
So do you think that it was right, but you couldn't see it, or it was, have you broken it down a little bit more to what was it that wasn't right and what was right?
Okay. What didn't seem right to me at that time is leaving all that money behind. What am I going to do now?
Yeah,
right.
That didn't seem right, but I knew my heart of hearts was telling me you're making the right move. And it also wasn't right for me at that time, because I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was just coasting. I was like, all I know is that I need to get out. I need some space. I need some free time. I need to just sit back, put my feet up and relax. I had 3 babies at that time. We grew in 6 countries. So we were working hard. We were up and down. I wasn't doing as much traveling as my partners because of my family affairs. They had older children, so they could travel anyhow, but still working very hard. And so it didn't seem right at that time for me that, I had a whole lot of second guessing. I second guessed myself a lot. And because I didn't know what I was going to do next, my self-belief was also at lows of, it was so low at that time. And it's been a journey working it back up. Trust me, it's been a journey. It's still working on it.
Was it also like, because you wanted to have more time with your children? Was that a big driver of that?
That was my number one priority. But remember, I was burning out and I had no idea why I was burning out. So then I started to come up with reasons as to why I should leave. And my number one reason was to spend more time with my young children, was my number one reason.
Nice. All right. So let's get into this super story coaching life school, Brooke Castillo.
But even before that, you had done the prior training. What was it? Something with Hind?
Oh, healing with Hind. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. I was talking to a friend, she says to me, about what I want to do next. I thought I was going to be a mentor or do motivational speaking. I didn't even know how you become a motivational speaker, but I wanted to do that kind of thing because I always loved or got inspiration from motivational speakers.
Right.
So when she recommended healing with Hind, she had done a little bit of coaching with her, and that's how I ended up there. And so it was through Hind that I evolved. She introduced me to neuro-linguistic programming. I went ahead and took that. But at that time with Hind, I was working on myself. I was working on my emotional, my emotional traumas, I should say. But then she was also trying out this new business coaching program. I ended up joining that. So one thing led to the other. That's how I, got where I got. So from her, that's where I got my first coaching, transformational coaching certificate, and then neuro-linguistic programming, mental and emotional release. So by the time I found Brooke, it was very familiar territory. And I loved what Brooke had going for her. I mean, listening to her podcast just did a whole lot of digging in my own soul. And that's, how I decided that, this is the right place to be, and signed up for the coach certification program.
Right. So it sounds like you got your toe in the water a little bit with the healing with Hind and the NLP
Yes.
and all of that. And you're like, I have found it.
Exactly.
Right?
It was life-changing finding that space. It was so life-changing. I mean, that was the missing puzzle in my life. Now, when I was at NFT, we were introduced to Franklin Covey by a business colleague who had the license in Uganda at that time. And he really encouraged us to pick up the license in Tanzania. So he was the one that opened that door to personal development for me. I had read some books, I had read The Road Less Traveled. And, I read things and you're like, what, this makes sense, but how do I make sense of it?
Right.
And How to Win Friends and Influence People. So many, I'd read several personal development books, but just hadn't pieced that puzzle together. When he introduced us to Franklin Covey, I was like, wait a minute, this is how you make a business out of professional development. Loved it. And that, my journey pretty much started then.
Yeah, it sounds like so for me in real estate, I went on this bus tour. It was an all-day thing. And I never forget it. I tell this story many times. I'm walking to my car and I'm like, I can do this.
Wow.
Right. So it sounds like you had this, I'm in my space, I'm in my, my zone, my flow, right? Everybody's saying flow these days. You found what you're passionate about, and that is so important, right?
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask too, like, once you found the flow and the passion, is it still possible to burn out? That was my question. And that's why question. I was wondering with the cards, because you're nurturing, so you care about people and you like to develop people, and then your sales training, you know how to bring people in. But then is it possible to have too much of a good thing? Like when your business started to really grow and you had so many more people to serve.
Yeah.
Is it possible to burn out from the good thing? Or is it possible to just go deeper and deeper into flow?
Probably both. Right?
Either way, yes, it's possible to burn out. It's possible to go deeper and deeper into flow. Now, where I had to be very careful when I was starting my business, because I had to know when to stop. Yeah. I came from being an entrepreneur. Well, it was a partnership with two others, to a solopreneur, right? And you have that drive that I want this to work so bad. And in the beginning, there was that little bit of me that said, people need to now see that that I've gotten something else, that I'm going to create success again. So in the beginning, I was still in that people pleaser space.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know when to stop.
Right.
Seriously, this knowledge can be so consuming. You can overconsume, or overindulge, being that we're selling on social media, you can get trapped in that, and you want to, let me go ahead and do this IG reel now. Now that I've got the ideas come to my head, it's 9:30 in the night, and then you're busy doing an IG reel, or it's 6 p.m. You're thinking, oh, this is one more thing I need to do, one more email I need to send out. So it's so easy to burn out. But because I had been in that space before, I was careful. I didn't want to get that feeling again. I mean, when you're burning out, it really feels terrible. You feel like you're at a loss. So I did not want to get to that point again. I had young children who needed me, who needed their time. So I had to learn how to create the balance. Now, all the accountability for the business is on me, as opposed to the partnership where everybody had areas of responsibility and we had each other for support. But now it was just me, myself, and I. So yeah, you can burn out again, trying to because it's not easy starting from the ground. You're putting yourself out there. You want people to get to know you. You want people to trust you. So building that trust can take time. And yeah, it's easy. It's easy to burn out.
Yeah, it sounds like you totally, from your experience in the other business and getting fed up and all of that, you now had the awareness. So it's like you gained that awareness.
Yep.
Okay, it's 9:30. No, don't do this because it'll be 11:30. Go to bed. Right? But
don't look at the likes. It doesn't matter. Go to bed.
Right, go to bed. It's late. Go to bed.
Yeah. So you talked about Brooke Castillo and healing with Hind. What are some of the things that you look for in a mentor or people that have really motivated you to move forward and move your business forward?
Okay. So I had a mentor. In fact, the very gentleman that introduced us to Franklin Covey. We stayed in touch. We're always in touch. He's a good friend. And after I left the business, I spoke with him. And because he was a coach, he was always, impartial. He would listen. Then he would ask questions. And, at that time, I didn't even know what he was doing. So when I find coaching, he's like, remember I told you I certified at, I think he did Stanford or something like that. I thought, wait a minute, of course you did. So he gave me a book, Coactive Coaching, and said, take a look at that and see what you can make out of it. And he, I was always in touch with him, and he believed I could do it. So he was the anchor that I had. When you're looking for a mentor, it's very important that they believe in your capabilities. They believe in what you're trying to strive to do. That's very important. And they don't have to totally understand, but it helps a lot if they know or if they understand the kind of business you're getting into or the kind of industry you're getting into. So he was amazing. He held my hand. And after I finished my certification, I called him up. I said, hey, guess what? I'm done. He said, sure, come on, let's have a meeting. That day, he sat me down. He asked me 6 questions. They were coaching questions. And it was all about my business, who am I trying to serve? What kind of, what problem are you going to be solving? It felt like a quiz. I was like, look, I'm just done with my certification. Can I just figure that out slowly? It's like, it'd be very helpful if you figure it out, because then you know who you're going to be targeting. I remember he asked me, where do you see yourself 2 years from now? What do you see yourself doing? And I said, I see myself in a room of 25 women and having an impactful session, full day session with them. And that was when I really started to think about where I wanted to niche. So he was very instrumental in guiding me. He was amazing.
Now, do you see that African women or American women or English women, like, do you know where you want to kind of focus your niche?
You know, it's, I'm glad you asked that question. And that leads into challenges that you experience as a businesswoman, and especially the type of background that I've had. I know it's been a struggle. I've had to work a lot on my belonging. I really have. Because when I went back home, and interestingly enough, I had so much belief in the business we were starting at home, the recruiting business. I was sitting in the office by myself. I was the one going out there and knocking on doors proudly. I was so excited. Now I become a solopreneur and I'm like, okay, where do I belong? You know, I've always had people tell me that I speak too much English. I don't know how you measure that, or in Uganda, especially, or my accent, people comment about my accent. And that, you know, naturally as a human being, you know, you pull yourself back a bit and you're like, okay, do they get me? Do they understand me?
Yeah.
So I've had to work myself through that. And I was able to get a lot of business from people in Uganda, but at the same token, I do have clients in the US as well.
Yeah.
I don't believe I've had any client in the UK, although I've had a client in Saudi Arabia, and I believe there's people out there in the UK who know about my business. But where do I belong? I belong to that woman who understands the value that I'm offering. So it doesn't matter where they come from. The fact that I am online, my business is online, and coaching is done online, as long as I have the value, as long as I'm solving a problem for them, that's the woman that I'm talking to.
Okay.
Sounds like there might have been a little bit of that imposter syndrome in the beginning.
A little?
Am I-
Ooh, it was a whole lot.
Sounds like it hit a hot button there.
It was a whole lot, because here's what happens. You've seen this, Zelda, at the Life Coach School. Great place, great institution. And there's all these ladies who are creating success. Like the minute they get out of coach training, $100,000 in 6 months. And you're sitting there like, in the world did they make that happen? What is it I'm doing wrong? So you're constantly checking yourself. What am I doing wrong? But the beauty is that, the community also reminds you that everybody's journey is different,
Right.
And it's not about what they're doing. It's about you, how you feel about yourself and who you're serving. If you believe that person is out there, you'll find them. But it can take you time to believe that, because I yo-yoed in deciding my niche. I even hired somebody to help me figure out my niche. So that imposter syndrome, it was major. It was major. And it keeps showing up, because every time you level up somewhere, somehow it shows up, totally shows up. That little crocodile in your brain is going to tell you, no, we can't do this. We're not good enough for that. So yeah, it was major. It was major. I can't deny that.
That's so interesting, because you did have a successful business. You were out there, outgoing, meeting people, knocking on doors
without a problem.
Yeah, but this is different.
Then I had to do it by myself, no accountability partners. I'm thinking, where in the world do I start? And I had been out of the business community for a while, so I had to go and re-dig up those connections that I had. How do I network again? Look, I had to learn how to network again.
Yeah.
After COVID, in fact, I discovered I was an introvert. I used to think I was an extrovert. And I thought, well, I guess I am an introvert because I'm so comfortable being by myself.
Yeah. I
had to learn how to network again. So imposter syndrome is a major beast. And by the way, it manifests, especially when you're going through burnout. Those are some of the symptoms. Because then you start to lose belief in yourself and your capabilities. You're wondering what's going on.
You also take your energy. When you spend so much time thinking and dwelling on what's missing, the inadequacy, it takes your focus away from what is there, from the abundance that you can offer to the world. I know it's so powerful. And I have to tell myself the same thing too.
Because you're constantly
AKA
looking for it out there. You're looking for what's missing out there, and it's not out there. But even believing that it's not out there,
AKA energy sucker.
Yeah.
yes,
Right? It sucks the life right out of you if you let it. You
absolutely.
got to be careful with that.
Yeah, when I'm
Absolutely.
coaching clients on imposter syndrome, I always say, think about a Martin Luther King or Gandhi. Did they spend their time thinking so much about, oh, I don't know what to say, or I don't know how to say it? No, they just gave their whole entire person to the mission.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's always, what is your mission? And
Mhm.
how can you bring your all to the mission? And then you don't have time to spend thinking, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. When you're lost in that, you're not thinking about, gee, am I worthy? Am I this? Am I that? Or whatnot?
Yeah.
You're thinking about, I'm here to help this person.
yeah.
What can I
Exactly.
do for you today? Right?
But what's more, what hurts the most, or what's the most difficult, the most challenging feeling is when you've been in that space before, when you've been in that Gandhi space before. I was in that space in the previous partnership. It was, what does the world have? I am here to solve a problem.
Right.
Who needs recruiting? Who needs their staff, challenges solved? Here I am knocking on doors without a problem. Then I had to do it all by myself in my own business. It was.
Uh-oh.
Well, maybe then, thinking of again about nurturing, how nurturing is so important in teamwork and community, maybe developing that or realizing that you already have that.
Yeah. It is now that I've really learned that it's all right in here. It's internal. It is not out there. But you still, regardless, you still continue to work on it.
Absolutely.
You still have to remind yourself that is it.
Yeah,
But it's so
so
confusing. It's really confusing.
Yeah. What are your superpowers, right? Being nurturing. That's the cool part of this, cracking your code and this bank idea is when you know yourself and, all right, log it all out. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my superpowers? What am I really good at? You know a lot of what you're really good at. Now it's like plug and play, right? So you pull out all those things that you're really good at, and then you go, okay, I'm not so good at these other things. How do you just ask those powerful questions? That's why coaching is so freaking incredible, right? And we're so jacked up about it because it's in the questions. You ask really good questions, and that's when growth and progress is made, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And always starting with your strengths, but then realizing how those other codes, maybe the lower ones or the ones maybe that aren't so strong, can actually, as you allow and expand your capacity to have, you can allow even those lower codes to shine forth. So I am too. I'm very introverted and shy.
Yeah.
But I am learning to be more outgoing like you are, and knocking on doors and approaching people. So I realize now, if I want to have a fuller experience, I want to raise all of those codes.
Yeah.
Right. That's the goal, to raise all the codes. We just recently did that. There's an advanced part of that. And my codes went from, you can score 25 on all four of these different codes. In the beginning, it was 25, 23, 17, 9. And then we redid it. And I asked Zelda, now help me out here, because I don't want to, get this wrong in my own mind. I want to be realistic, right? Okay, but it was cool because I'm like 25, 25, 22, and 20. So I raised them.
Nice. Okay.
Right? But that's all awareness and conscious effort and just studying it. I memorized, there's 12 values on each card. I memorized those. I go out every day I go out and I'm like, I'm on this seek and learn and what's their code? It's fun.
It's very interesting, actually, as you're speaking about that, because when I saw them, I thought, okay, yeah, this is perfect. This is true. But I did not think that about what you've just said, that you can raise the ones that are not, that you're not scoring high. Very interesting. Yeah. And I'm going to borrow the lesson from you, Patrick, that you learned all the values on those code cards. I should.
it's
Yeah.
fun, Janet, because I'll talk to somebody about it and I'll start rattling it off, and I don't usually have the codes with me, or the cards rather, but I'll go, yeah, I memorized them all. Blah, blah, blah. I just start rattling them off, and they're looking at
Yeah.
me like, oh my God.
I like that. I like that idea. I'm definitely going to focus on that because that's one way to build your self-belief and self-confidence.
Right.
So I like that.
So tell us more about, let's get into the coaching now, the burnout. What's a typical client? Who are you helping? What are some of the things? Give people an idea if they come to you for coaching and they're feeling really burnt out. Just give us a story or two about, how somebody came to you for burnout and how you help them and how it's life-changing.
Okay. I have a managing director of an organization. He has about 60 employees, 40 to 60 employees, he said, depending on the season, because it's an advertising agency. And he calls me up. He was a referral from one of my clients. He calls me up. He says, look, I am just tired. I don't want to go to work. And he's co-owner in this business as well. So he's like, I'm just tired. I don't want to go to work anymore. And yet I am not going to leave this business. That's one thing I know for sure. But I don't feel like I'm leading my team the way I need to be leading them. I am not excited anymore to do anything. I said, okay, so do you know what's causing this? He says, I have no idea. I just kind of ended up where I am now. And now I'm looking for direction. What I realized was he was actually transitioning, but he had no idea. Actually, not transitioning. It was a pivot. He needed to pivot in his business, but he was at a blockade because he was so good at driving the business to where he got it. He was so involved, managed to teach whoever he employs the ropes of the business. Now he needed to step out of being so hands-on, more into a leader. But he had no idea that that's what he wanted to do. So as we started to work together, and of course, people who come with burnout they're often the impatient types. They often expect people to understand, especially leaders or managers. They often expect everybody else to understand the instructions that they're giving them. I don't see why they don't get it. I don't see why they don't understand. I've tried so hard with this person, and they have all these very high expectations of everybody else because they're naturally a type A person, such high achievers.
Yeah.
So that's one person. So for him, it was he needed to pivot, become more of a leader, let go. Letting go is so difficult for people, for A types, and that leads us to burnout. Then I have another lady who came to me who her biggest symptom was imposter syndrome. So she was working in a male, she works in energy, so it's male dominated. And she too was starting to get exhausted. She has no idea why she's getting exhausted, but the reason she was getting exhausted is because she kept comparing herself a lot to her male counterparts, and that way depleting her own self-belief and self-confidence. And yes, she was brilliant. She was bright and brilliant. So for her, most of what we had to work on was imposter syndrome. So people come with different challenges. It's either you lack the self-belief or the self-confidence, or the imposter syndrome is there, or you just absolutely, and for some of them, some people need to actually just figure out what direction they want to take after they've left, because somebody will come to you and say, I'm done, and I'm okay that I'm done with this space. I want to find another job. Sometimes one of my clients was I had gotten a promotion, and he just wanted to feel comfortable that he can lead a team, because now he was getting more people to lead than he had before. And he just wanted to feel more comfortable that he can lead a team. So burnout shows up in so many ways, but the biggest is, I always keep it simple and say, when you're at that point where you're fed up of being fed up, chances are you're burning out.
Yeah. You brought up a good point on that second story with the example of the woman in a male dominated world. And this is huge. And you hit on it, that she was comparing herself to them.
Yes.
The benchmark is where she was to where she is now and where she wants to go. And when you start comparing yourself to yourself, that takes all that other stuff and puts it to the side, because it doesn't matter. What matters is your growth from where you were, your reflection, and then moving forward. And when people get that and understand that, their life gets so much less stressful, and they're like, oh, wow. I'm like, that's a huge epiphany.
In fact, that's a very common thing amongst all the women that I coach.
Yeah, I would imagine.
That's the most common thing.
Yeah. And it's a shame too, because nothing against men.
Wait for it.
But women bring so much diversity, care, curiosity, the perspective is different, and that's valuable. And it's, a lot of times the work is, the things that make us different, make us unique. Those are the things we tend to hide. Whereas that often is where our greatest strength lies.
The superpowers.
The superpowers. We're so quick to throw those off, throw them out because it doesn't look like somebody else, or the belief. Maybe you have this belief that it's not supposed to look that way, or it's not supposed to be good. And so, coming against that own belief.
Yeah, and the dynamic is so different. I've heard it said many times, women are way more complex. Men they're more simple. So now you're not even making a true comparison, because men and women, the dynamic of the species, the gender is so much different. It's like, why would you even try to compare that? It's not worth it, right?
I like that. I like that example. Yeah. And it's so amazing that we women, we're always the ones who get the definition of success wrong, our own definition of success wrong. We are always the ones who and misunderstand what authority means, or assertiveness, or confidence. We always get it wrong in trying to compare ourselves. We're always getting wrong. And yet, who measures success? Who measures confidence? Like you said, Patrick, when you're competing against yourself, you're measuring it against yourself, nobody else. So it's so easy and again, it comes from our background, it comes from our nurturing. As an African, man, you're raised to people please. That's just the culture. Especially in Uganda, in my culture, you're raised to people please. It's always, how are you going to be seen? Don't do that because people will think this. Somebody will come to you and absolutely say to you, how can you do that? What are people thinking about you? Nowadays, I laugh. Nowadays, it's, oh, somebody's thinking about me? That's great. But back then, it was, what are people going to think when I do this?
Right. It's that, what are people going to think? Oh my God. Oh dear. Oh my, right? Your mind's going. And as you get older, like me, I'm older now. I'm like, I don't give a crap what they think.
That's the best way to live.
Right.
Seriously.
You want to have a certain amount of, you don't want to do dumb stuff. But at the same time, you don't want to get hung up in that, oh my God, what are they going to think about me if I do this or that?
Yeah.
It'll hold you back. Is my point.
A lot. And I didn't realize that I lived like that for a long time. A long time.
So what is your message to a young up and coming, maybe a Ugandan girl or an African American girl in the US who's looking at you, wants to be like you? What is your message, or what are the things that you think would really help them to have more self-confidence and really believe in themselves?
Good question.
It's so easy to tell someone that you have it in you, you can do it. The most difficult thing is getting that person to believe it. They will hear you, and yes, they'll have examples in their past where they've demonstrated their confidence and belief in themselves. But as we grow, that confidence is always challenged. And what we are often afraid of is even nothing to be afraid of. But of course, we don't know that. So anybody who's up and coming, who's trying to do something new, who's trying to step out of their comfort zone, what I want to tell them is, you're not afraid of what you don't know, or that you don't know how to do it, or that you don't know what's going to happen. That's really not your biggest fear. Your biggest fear is how you're going to feel when you step out of your comfort zone. That's your biggest fear. And it's just the feeling that you're afraid of, but it may be very difficult for somebody who hasn't been in this space, in the self-development space, to understand. But that's the reality. We don't need to know how we're going to succeed at that next challenge. What we need to know is, can I take one step forward towards that challenge until I am, confident that I have done my best with it. And whether it works out or not, there's lessons. Either way, look at the good as lessons, look at the bad as lessons. Right. That will help them move forward.
Right. I want to go back to the burnout for a second here. What would you say to somebody who's listening in on this conversation? Maybe they're feeling the symptoms, or they're wondering, am I burnt out? But they don't really have the resources or the financial capability to, work with a person like yourself. What advice would you give them to at least cope with and handle the situation and get them on that path to, figuring out? Like, I love what you said about, I had this $17 certification, and I got the $30. You just stuff like that, where somebody may be able to seek and you will find, right? So for the person that maybe is in that burnout, or I don't have the money. Yeah, you have the money, just you got to look harder, or whatever the case may be, right?
Well, I want to advise this person that today, everything is at our fingertips, everything that we need. It might take you a little longer to work yourself out of it, doing it by yourself, but there's a starting point. And that starting point is actually understanding why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and knowing and believing that those feelings can change, because you were not always burnt out, or you were not always experiencing the symptoms of burnout. But when you feel that the stress is kind of becoming chronic, the frustration is kind of becoming chronic, the anxiety is kind of becoming chronic, then do some research. Understand, go to Forbes.com, go to positivepsychology.com, go to just type in Google anything about your experiences, how you're feeling right now. Read, because once you understand what you're going through, then change will start to happen for you naturally.
Yeah, I would like to add on to that, because I've experienced this myself, is pay attention to your body.
Yes.
If your body's starting to break down and you're getting some kind of rheumatoid arthritis, or you got some low-level cancer or something, that's your body screaming at you.
Yes.
Dude, you got to take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
That's the wake-up call, right?
Start to make change.
I love that you brought that up, because emotionally, when we are experiencing so much emotional stress, the communication the body gets is, I need to fight off something. And it's definitely at some point, if not taken care of, going to lead into, it's going to affect your physiology.
Right.
So yes, absolutely right. Self-care is important. Listen to your body, do something, take a walk, jog, run, put something on your calendar every day to try and release that stress. And the more you release that stress on your brain, you're also going to create space for finding solutions. Absolutely.
So to add to that, talking about stress, but no, in a good way. So how do you challenge yourself? What are you doing to challenge yourself? Maybe on a daily basis, or?
Sometimes I wish I did not have to challenge myself, but well, one of the things that I'm doing to challenge myself is actually taking what I've learned and putting it into action. I mean, the mind is such a beautiful thing. At the same time, it is the biggest challenge of all. So what I do usually is I will start off with what result do I want to create? What now I am calling it a reward. There's a podcast I listened to recently by Brooke, and I don't remember what it was. I don't know if it was attention audit. And she says that we indulge in things to seek short-term pleasure. I will, and I mean, I do this, I'm human. So sometimes I'll not want to write that script that I want to do for my video tomorrow, and I'll just go on and consume, read this. And then, as I'm doing some research, it's going to lead into something else. But I have started to look at my results as rewards. So I'm saying to myself, okay, I am going to reward myself with maybe doing research on this topic that I found intriguing as I'm doing research on that script that I need to write for my video. So when I started to look at things as rewards, then I started to change my mindset. I said, then it becomes a less of a challenge, still a challenge, because you can't wait for that reward to show up. Yeah. It's still a challenge, but it becomes less of a burden. You stop looking at things as tasks, and now you're looking at them as results. Yeah. So it's mind work every day. In a nutshell, it's working on my mind every day. I've had the most challenging week. Last week was my most challenging week. I took my 18-year-old and left him in Texas.
Oh boy.
To complete his high school. Now you tell me, this is somebody I've lived with for the last 18 years. Yeah. I had to let go.
There.
Yeah. So I just sat with it. So in fact, one of the best things to do is when you're experiencing all those negative emotions, the burden, is just sitting with them and just allowing them to be there and just saying, this is where I am right now. And sometimes it's very difficult to do anything when you're in that space, anything productive when you're in that space. But yeah, working on my mind every day, accepting the improvements I want to make every day, and then doing something about it.
Wow. Final question. Okay.
Yes.
This has been awesome. I'm so glad that you came on today. I've been getting these hill hits, right? The hair on the back of your neck. Zoom, zoom, zoom.
I am so happy that you gave me this opportunity. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This has been awesome.
Definitely.
So final question. I love to ask this, and I walk up to people, and I have a couple of them, but here's one. What's your 2, 5, 10? Right? And they're like, huh?
Yeah, that's me, huh?
What are you talking about? Well, what's your 2-year? Where you hit on it earlier. You're the coach, you're a mentor person. You were saying, asked you about where do you see yourself in 2? I like to ask people, where do you see yourself in 2, 5, and 10 years out into the future? Because there's so much power in that, right?
Yes, there's so much power in it, and I wish I had the answer for everything, but
okay, just give us what you got.
2 years, my 2-year plan. Right now, I want to be able to have gotten it in 2 years' time. I want to have gotten into group coaching.
Okay, let me stop you. How about rephrasing that and going and being affirmative and say, in 2 years, I will be doing group coaching. See, because the word is so powerful, right?
Thank you.
So the minute you flip it around and go, wait a minute, do I want this? Or am I going to do this? Right? It's back to the belief. So in 2 years, I will be doing group coaching, my passion. I love it. And what else?
Thank you. So listeners, there you go. We also go through the same struggles as you're going through. So I like that. I will be doing group coaching in 2 years.
There you go. Much more powerful.
And 5 years, you said?
Right.
5, I will be making $500,000.
Excellent.
Nice.
10, I will be making 10 years. Yeah, I'll be making $1 million.
Throw another million on there, Janet.
All those goals I've just set right now, the last 2, the 5 and 10, those goals I've just set right now.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Right. So now you've got them, we've thrown them in the coffee pot. It's going to start percolating now, and you can drill down to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Janet. Thank you for coming on our podcast.
Yeah,
This was
absolutely.
Such a great interview, and
It's
just
been amazing.
so much. You dropped so many gems,
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
pearls.
Yep. A lot of knowledge in there. Lots of knowledge.
Absolutely,
It's been amazing. I really appreciate the opportunity. You two are great. You made it so much fun. I
Thank you.
love it.
Thank you. That's our goal, to have
Yeah.
fun, right? This is our passion. We love doing this.
Oh God, and I can
You
see
know,
that. I
right?
wish the
We get-
listeners were looking at you right now, you two right now. I
You
can see
realize-
the passion.
Yeah, see, we found this out, Janet, because we were doing some stuff. We were in a mastermind group, and one of the things we decided to do was some Facebook Lives,
Mm.
just to get our feet wet in terms of maybe it'll evolve into a podcast. We don't know, but we just did it. Let's try it, right? Take action, see what happens. And we loved it.
Yeah.
And here you
And
are
I've,
now.
I've been ever since. I'm like, Zelda, we got to do the pod. When you're ready to do the podcast? Come on, we got to do the podcast. I'm ready to do the podcast, right? So,
It's a
yeah,
beautiful thing. Beautiful
All right.
thing.
we're gonna leave it there.
Yeah. And as always,
And as always, thank you in advance.
Thank
Just
you.
thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. Yeah, we're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. We're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. We're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning.